just a few hours. And believe it or not, there are a ton of ways in getting gear that could potentially shoot you all the way up to 650 plus item level and even higher starting this week. Not only that, there's a massive mistake 99% of players are going to be making this week that is going to cause them to waste dozens of hours. So if you want to avoid wasting a ton of time, we're going to jump into that a little bit later, so stick around. So number one, the easiest way to get a decent piece of loot is completing the first LFR wing of the new raid of Liberation of Undermine.
Yes, let's make sure we do this.
Anytime once
We're doing this
to kill
today.
the first few bosses of the brand new raid, and you'll have a chance at earning a veteran piece of raid loot, which can be boosted all the way up to 645 item level. And if you get lucky enough, you maybe get a trinket, you maybe get a weapon for your class. This can actually be a really great upgrade to kickstart the season for a very minimal amount of work, right? So you can deal some more damage or healing, so you can clear some of the harder content more effectively. Not only that, it gives you a chance to see the first couple bosses and give you an idea of how the fights are going to go when you run it on normal later this week. Next up, another super easy guaranteed way to get a champion piece of loot in a matter of minutes is actually by defeating the new world boss in the Undermine zone called the Godfather. Now, Blizzard did previously announce that this boss will...
we need to do that as well. We need to do that as well.
Drop a Warbound Intel equipped item on the first kill per week rather than a random chance at equipment for each character. So what this means is that once a week, you go there on one of your characters and you get a guaranteed piece of champion loot that you could trade across your entire Warband account. I personally think this is a great idea for people who have a lot of alts, seeing as how, you know, I would personally be constantly doing world bosses on 3 or 4 characters and get nothing every single week, where now, in this case, you guaranteed get one piece of Warbound loot that you could trade across your account. The boss has a chance of dropping multiple different pieces of cloth, leather, mail, and plate gear, as well as a necklace for you to give across your character. So definitely do not miss this step. Next up, of course, a big mistake I believe everyone's going to be making is rushing right into Mythic Plus without having any gear. And what I believe everyone should be doing first is going on a Mythic Zero World Tour.
All right, so let's do Mythic Zero World. Why not?
Zeros in the War Within drop champion loot, which can be upgraded all the way up to 658 item level if you acquire the crest for it, which is insane. Not only that, completing Mythic Zeros practically gives you a guaranteed piece of loot drop from that dungeon every time. And if you're stacked with a group of friends with the same armor type...
All right, so maybe we're going to change our approach. Let's go ahead and let's do our LFR, and then let's go to Mythic Zero.
You can freely trade all of this gear amongst yourselves and make sure you all get loot and gear very quickly, making it very, very efficient and a great way to deck out your character in a couple of hours. I know everybody's excited to go do Mythic Plus, but the chances of you getting a piece of loot are still very slim from that loot chest at the end compared to getting tons of loot throughout all of the different dungeons that you can run very quickly on Mythic Zero. Not only that, it gives you a chance to learn the dungeons, you'll learn all the mechanics, the mobs, how these things go, so you'll be ready for a higher difficulty content for Mythic Plus later this week. I'm telling you, it's going to be a very big mistake if you jump right into doing Mythic Plus. Save it for the end of the week, run your Mythic Zeros to load out your character with champion gear.
We're still going to run our 2s. We're still going to run our 2s.
Very, very quickly and easily. Next up, we have probably my favorite bit of content to get gear, and that's going to be delves. Now, we have a couple of things we need to talk about, but something that goes hand in hand with delves is going to be quickly completing your weekly quest in Dornogal and the Undermine, so you can acquire a couple free pieces of gear as well as your bountiful keys, which is going to be juicy for getting you that champion loot starting at tier 8 for delves. Now, you can see based off the chart here that starting at tier 8, this is where you acquire the champion loot guaranteed for the bountiful delves, and it's kind of the sweet spot when you're running those every single week to get that gear that could shoot potentially up to 658 item level. Not only that, one of the biggest changes Blizzard made heading into the new season is that you can acquire Delver's bounty maps at the end of these delve runs at a much higher rate compared to last season where you only got them like once every blue moon, you know what I mean? So they do limit the Delver's bounty cap to once a week though, but you're going to get them much more consistently now rather than previously in Season 1 where you didn't really get them. So this means that you could take this Delver's Bounty if you acquire it, go into that Tier 8 Bountiful Delve, and turn it into the 649 Hero Track gear that can be boosted all the way up to 665 item level, which is absolutely insane. If you're able to get lucky enough to farm this out on one of those Delver's maps at a Tier 8, you can get a fantastic piece of gear that could potentially change your entire character as early as this week. I mean, imagine if you get a trinket or a weapon, you could boost it all the way up to 665, which is insane. So starting this week, you definitely want to make sure that this is a priority for you. You make sure you get to that tier 8 and try to get that Delver's Bounty map. Additionally, in Season 1, all tiers above tier 8 were pretty much just there for the achievement. They were kind of useless. But for Season 2, Blizzard did make some changes, and it will now award you additional crests, so you need to listen carefully. In tiers 9, 10, and 11, Delves will award the player with more rune crest.
Alright, so we have to do 9, 10s, and 11s.
Bountiful Delves will now award what is called the Gilded
That's what I was
Crest
saying.
3 times a week. That can earn you a total of 21 Gilded Crest a week from all your Delves. This means you can start upgrading your gear to some of the best possible items in the entire game completely alone now in the War Within Season 2, which I think is a major W on Blizzard's end, and it's phenomenal for the casual player. This is going to be something that isn't too easy to accomplish, don't get me wrong. Clearing out tier 11s is pretty hard, but if you could somehow, some way, get to tier 11 Delves and get them done this week, you can start farming out Gilded Crest, which could give you a massive
that gives you 21 of them.
Craft that weapon, maybe save it down the line to boost up your character power substantially if you get your spark. Listen, do not sleep on the power of Delves in Season 2, because if you're able to run those Delves at tier 11, you farm those out starting as early as this week, you can drastically shoot up in player power all on your own, requiring no help from anyone else. Additionally, with the launch of Season 2, of course, you get access to the normal Liberation of Undermine raid. We'll drop the champion gear that can be boosted all the way up to 658 item level if you have the crest and valor stones for it. Now, this is something that I'm going to put on a, priority list later on down in the week, because it does require you to have a group, some people to run the raid on, and it could take some time if you're progressing it through the bosses. Maybe someone drops out, maybe they quit, maybe you don't finish, and then you got to refill, all that fun stuff. So personally, this is something I'm going to try to do later on in the week, and I'm going to try to handle everything else I stated before this first, so I can have as much power as I possibly can heading into the raid to guarantee I can complete it as quickly as possible. So yes, the Liberation of Undermine raid will be active. Everyone will be primarily doing it at the normal level starting this week, which could give you champion gear that can be boosted all the way up to 658. Moving on now to the content where things start to get pretty difficult. We have Mythic Plus, but I need you all to listen very carefully about this segment, because Mythic Plus is something that had caused a lot of problems in the War Within in the previous season. The absolute best thing you should be doing right now, if you're focusing on Mythic Plus this week, is trying to get to that Mythic Plus 6 sweet spot. The reason you want to farm out Mythic Plus 6 as much as you possibly can is because you get the highest rate of runed crests you possibly can at 18 per run, while also you acquire now hero track gear starting at 649 item level, which can be boosted up all the way up to 665, which is insane at the time. Additionally, since you are farming out so many runed Undermine crest, it will make it pretty easy to craft maybe your weapon potentially at 658 item level based off the crafting chart you see here. So just by farming out Mythic Plus 6 and spamming it over and over and over with a group of guildies or friends, you have a chance at hero tier loot, which is phenomenal. You're farming out those 18 runed Undermine crest every single run, which is amazing, and you can take those crests and craft a juicy piece of loot whenever you have your spark available, which is fantastic as well. So many people are going to try to push Mythic Plus as high as they can, jump into it immediately. They're going to be bricking keys, they're not going to know the dungeons, they're not going to know the mechanics, and they're going to end up wasting a ton of time. You have to understand, the season is going to last a very long time from now, and it's only the first week. In my opinion, the best thing you can do before heading on your quest to, farm out those Mythic Plus 6s, you're going to want to do everything I previously mentioned on this list to deck out your character and make it as efficient as you possibly can. Blizzard did us a big favor by allowing us to acquire hero track gear starting at +6, and they also nerfed the dungeon difficulty drastically compared to last season. So pushing up to this could be very, very easily obtained if you have the gear, you know the mechanics, and you got a good group starting as early as this week. And while you're doing all your content, you do have to remember that you will be obtaining carved, runed, and gilded crest occasionally throughout the next couple of weeks, which can be used to transfer into enchanted crests for crafting big items to shoot you up in power level very easily. All you have to do is simply go to Lande right next to the enchanting trainer, in Dornagal or Cyanite right next to your crafting orders vendor to exchange your crest into the enchanted version. From there, all you have to do is get your spark and make an epic crafting order with as many high tier materials as possible to have it crafted into a piece of gear that can give you a disgusting power level item spike out of nowhere. I highly suggest waiting to be able to craft it on a weapon though, because then you could also apply an effective embellishment on there as well, which is pretty much like an enchant on steroids. Typically, every class spec out there has a different priority list on what these embellishments you put, so I highly recommend looking up what is best for your spec on the embellishment list out there. Just remember, it's most efficient to save your crest, use it with your spark, to craft a piece of gear that is very, very high item level, and it will shoot you up in power level drastically, almost instantaneously. Additionally, starting this week, I believe we will have access to the Catalyst, where we will have our chance at a free essence of Kajamite. This means that we can take a piece of loot on our character and instantly turn it into a piece of tier set gear, which can get us closer to our tier set bonus, which of course we all know is a very big power spike. I highly recommend waiting until you get a piece of hero track gear to transfer into this tier set, because if you convert it on a piece that is, you know, veteran or champion, it could potentially get replaced very easily the second you get into the hero track. So once again, I would highly recommend waiting until you get a piece of hero track gear and instantly transfer it into a heroic raid tier set piece right there, so that you can literally hold on and use until the end of the season for months and months on end. Don't make this.
So does LFR give us that heroic
Mistake, be patient, use it on a hero track piece. And lastly, one of the craziest ways you can acquire a piece of hero set gear as early as this week for literally free is by completing your Season 2 meta achievement. Now, this is something that technically can be done as early as this week if you're like a serious sweat lord, but how this works is that if you either complete a Mythic Plus rating of 2000 or defeat Gallywix on heroic difficulty, you will earn a free crystallized essence of Kajamite that grants you 1 catalyst charge, which if you all were paying attention just a little bit ago, you use this as a catalyst vendor. In Dornagal, you transfer it into a piece of tier set gear. Bada bing, bada boom, you're good to go. I did this last season when the rated PvP season opened up on the first week. I got to 1600 very easily, got my tier set piece, gave me a really big power level spike. I cannot stress to you how important getting this meta achievement actually is early on, but it's not something that is mandatory. Personally, I'm probably going to wait until the PvP rank season opens up to go get it and go from there. So a quick recap and listing for all of you right here in acquiring all this loot from easiest to hardest in this order, I would recommend goes as follows.
All right,
First
let's check
up,
this
quickly
out.
kill the world boss and queue up for LFR on the first wing to have a chance at a couple very easy pieces of gear and also get a taste of the raid
All
mechanics.
right, let's do that, chat. Let's go. Let's look where the world boss is.
You also should get together with a group of guildies or friends that all have the same armor type and run a Mythic Zero world tour, so you have a chance at champion loot and can trade all of that amongst yourselves in your group that could potentially be shot up to 658 item level. After that, you complete your weekly quest in Dornagal and the Undermine, and then you start working on acquiring your bountiful keys from those chests. After this, you boost your delves all the way up to minimum tier 8, and you start farming out your bountiful delves at tier level 8. If you are somehow, some way skilled or strong enough to shoot up to clearing tier 11 delves, try to make it a priority and get those 21 gilded crests this week. Not only that, while you're in your delves, make sure to fish out that treasure map so you have a chance at that free heroic piece of gear this week. After you do your delves, you jump into normal raid, clear as many bosses as you can for potential loot, and after you acquired loot from all of those different sources, you should then go into Mythic Plus, which is the hardest content in the game in my opinion, and farm out those Mythic Plus 6s if you can with a good group to start acquiring that hero track gear very early on in the season. Don't forget also that you convert all of your crests into gear at the vendors in Dornagal, and you could transfer your hero track pieces of loot to a tier set for your tier set bonus, and you could also earn a free crystallized essence of Kajamite by accomplishing.
I'm going to start with whatever you guys want to do. Quite honestly, LFR is definitely a must, and maybe taking down the world boss
either 2K Mythic Plus rating, defeating Gallywix on Heroic, or
But I want to
earning
do my
1600
twos.
rated PvP rating. Doing
Twos.
so will allow
And
you
you're
to
in
once
there,
again transfer a
Hellraiser.
hero track piece of gear to a tier set, which will start earning you your tier set bonus, which is a very big power spike. Don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, it's a very important out there. If you're looking for a guild, we here at the Comeback Kids are recruiting, so pay attention. One last note we wanted to make: if you're looking for a guild or people to progress through Mythic Plus with,
That's
or
awesome.
raid with next season, the
I
Comeback
think
Kids are recruiting
we
any and
definitely
all
need to go
players
into
are welcome to
LFR.
Come on down, play with us. We're looking to fill out some new members for the
Start
raid.
with zeros and go to the
my
twos.
God, we
I
fucking
want to
did
try
it.
it too.
Oh my God, let's fucking go, bro.
I want to try it too,
Fucking go. That's
for
how
sure.
that shit gets done. If you're on the horde,
I think
you
that
simply just go to the guild tab and
we
search
should
up
do
the
that
Comeback
so that we
Kids.
could see what our
Pop
power
up the
level is.
guild size on any, so you can
So we're
actually
going
see
to
it.
start with
Either way,
that.
though, if it doesn't work, you just use the Discord
So
link.
let me go ahead and give you guys the link to this. It's going to be one of those things that you guys, you know what? It's up to every strummer who wants to, you know, take their community and put them through whatever we can do. I think we could go with the two. If you, Hellraiser, are you with me? Are you with me? Because I might need you to DPS, tank, or heal. These are the things that we need to think about because, quite honestly, this is the beginning of a long season. I bet you.